If you hear me gasping some in this video, I'm sorry. I've been fighting bacterial bronchitis, which is something of an epidemic in my local area right now, and is often leading to pneumonia, so that's what it is. Anyway, there was a recent shooting at West Freeway Church of Christ in a town called White Settlement in Texas, not too far from Fort Worth. And like a lot of modern churches, this church live streams its services every Sunday to, well, the country, the world, so that people can watch. And so as it happens, we actually have a video of this shooting and the response, what happened. You see, there were armed members of the congregation who were there to stop this from becoming what could have been a massacre. One of the people who's been heralded as a hero, because he in fact is a guy named Jack Wilson, who is seen in the video wearing a uniform, and who shoots the attacker. According to police, another member of the congregation also shot the attacker, but that's not so clear on the video. At least 5 other members of the congregation then show up in this video with their guns. You can see them holding him at gunpoint and making sure there aren't any other shooters, essentially keeping people safe. Again, this could have been a significantly worse incident than it was. And I've heard leftists, including media pundits of course, try to argue this case doesn't support the idea of arming good people, because the members of the church who shot the attacker were security guards, because one of them was in a uniform as a security guard. This doesn't really make sense for 2 main reasons. Firstly, security or not, they're armed people who are good people who were able to shoot the attacker. Doesn't really matter if he's in a uniform or not, that's what it was. He was a good person, a good guy with a gun, right? Point number 2 is, they weren't really security in the sense that you and I might think, because they were volunteer security. They were members of the church who had trained, for instance, like this, together, but weren't paid. They weren't part of a security company. They didn't do this for a living. They were just members of the congregation who were ready. Some of them were proud enough of their jobs that they wore uniforms, but that's all. A volunteer group of good people. It just kind of shows you how far leftists will go to try and make their arguments, regardless of how they run counter to fact, as is so clear in this case. It would seem that they would rather let innocent people, in this case churchgoers, Christians, die than let people carry. Because it was in 2017 that Texas changed its law to allow churchgoers to arm themselves. You know, everybody thinks of Texas as allowing lots of guns, but actually they only allowed open carry just a few years ago, and up until 2017 they had banned people in churches and places of worship from arming themselves, making churches essentially gun-free zones. And because they were gun-free zones, they had also become areas of target. Just like in the cases of schools, which are gun-free zones, people who are evil seek out vulnerable people. Those vulnerable people become essentially fish in a barrel. They become targets. And so it seems especially evil. The whole concept of gun-free zones, where we put our children and people who are praying, seems, well, heinous. Anyway, this particular shooter, his name is apparently Keith Kinnunen. He was shot and killed, but he had a pretty extensive criminal history, including of felony aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Now that was what he was originally charged with. It was reduced to a lesser charge, and he ended up only doing 90 days in jail for that offense. He was also later charged with unlawfully possessing weapons because he was found with a 12-gauge shotgun wandering around on the streets after having already, served time. So at that point he had an illegal weapon. And then later, when he showed up at this church to kill people, he again had an illegal weapon. And that's important because, well, the gun was illegal. And you have all these different leftists who talk about how we need more gun laws. And time after time again, you see the killers who are armed are violating gun laws. Of course, they're violating murder laws too. These extra laws don't prevent, in some way, the crimes from happening. All you can do with laws is prevent the good people from being able to respond to them, and we see that. This guy was homeless and apparently disturbed, had gone from one house to another, getting thrown out by different friends. He matches a kind of profile that we've seen time and time again, a profile of disturbed or evil people who will always exist. Again, it wasn't lawful for him to have a gun, he got one anyway. It certainly wasn't lawful for him to shoot people, and he did that anyway. But those on the left would have us believe that the solution to people like him is disarming the rest of us, disarming the members of the congregation who prevented a massacre from happening. The best response, the only response, was the one that actually happened, where there were good people there, able to defend themselves and everybody else. And if you do watch the video, you'll see that the shooting happened in about 6 seconds, and that includes the original shooter and that shooter being shot. 6 seconds, that's how long it took. And, you know, if you imagine how much time it would take for a member of the congregation to call the police, to tell the police what was happening, and then for the police to drive there and arrive and figure out a plan as to how they would best enter the church and take down the shooter. Well, that's a lot of time for that evil person to shoot innocent Christians who are trying to simply pray and have their service. The thing is, the length of time that a evil person can spend shooting people is extended all the way. It correlates with how long it takes for the first good guy with a gun to appear on the scene, whether that person happens to be a member of the congregation who's there to stop him, or police who are 10 minutes away when seconds count. We had, in this particular case, the best possible solution, which is regular people being there, you know, within seconds, which they were. This should be something that we look at and we say, you know, a few years ago, we had incidents, including in Texas, where an evil atheist decided to go and kill Christians because they were Christian, and killed tens of people in a church where they were unable to defend themselves. And then we have this case, where you see the best response that could have happened. And that contrast needs to be heralded, it needs to be repeated, because this is the sort of response we should see in schools. We should have schools that are armed and in which a school shooting can stop in seconds, not in minutes or not in hours, as in the case over in Florida where the police were too afraid to enter. Don't leave yet! Remember to like and share the video, and if you want to be reliably notified of new videos, sign up for my newsletter. Also, if you'd like to support the production of these videos, I'd appreciate it if you supported me over at Subscribestar, or you can buy one of our Healthwise healthier products, or you can even get yourself some merch.